and gentlemen, turn your speakers up. It's time for the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast. Turn up the bass. A podcast discussing all things AEW and WWE. Oh yeah! Let's meet the hosts. First, a man hailing from the hub city in Indiana. He goes by @TooSweetKyle on Twitter. The host, Kyle Gagliardi. Enter co-host, hailing from the Valley of Lake Tahoe. He goes by @JimTuck89 on Twitter. Jim Tucker. And last but not least, hailing from the cornfield somewhere in Indiana, the full-time part-timer, Ian Garavaglia. Turn up the bass. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram @PodOnTheMark.
What is going on, everyone? You're listening to the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast, hosted by the Marks, for the Marks, and I'm your host, Mr. OTM, Kyle Gagliardi. And joining me this evening is my good friend, Ian Garavaglia. Ian, what's going on, my friend?
Where do I begin? We were fresh off the press conference, as most of the people, obviously, that are live watching right now can tell, and we have a lot to talk about, man. A lot to talk about.
I was going to say, let's not beat around the bush. Let's get into it, because not just talking about WrestleMania press conference that happened just minutes ago. We will be talking about NXT Vengeance Day a little bit, and of course getting into the latest in AEW. But let's not waste any time. Let's get to the press conference. First off, I want to talk about the presentation of it, because it sort of was surreal. We've never seen WWE approach a press conference in this way. It felt like a PLE, but it wasn't. That's the kind of vibe I got from it.
Yeah, I genuinely thought it was going to be one of those press conferences where it's on a stage and just a bunch of tables and chairs just sitting and talking. Like a UFC kind of, what we usually see with their little press conferences, and it took me by surprise. I genuinely thought it was going to be some wrestling involved in this with the stage presence that they had. But I mean, these people showed up for 1 hour just for this event, and they came to play, and they came to yell and scream.
They did. I would say they got their money's worth, but I believe if you were not a member of the media, you could get in there for free. So if you were in Las Vegas and you're a wrestling fan, I feel like that would have been a no-brainer of a decision. But speaking of decisions, Cody Rhodes had his, and for a while in that segment there at the end with The Rock, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns, there was no Cody to be seen. And then I started to get the vibe that you're saving Cody Rhodes for last, that it has to be Cody versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Come to find out, Cody made his decision. That is clear now. We do have that set in stone. Cody has chosen Roman Reigns for his opponent at WrestleMania 40. The rest now, Ian, kind of up in the air, I would say, because they teased a lot in that segment.
Yeah, and I texted, we had a group chat going for the Main Event Network, and I texted and I said, that answered some questions, but it also left a lot on the table, which is exactly what they'd want to do. Because, I mean, we're still just about 2 months away from WrestleMania.
58 days, as Dirk Vogus is saying right there in the chat. Dirk, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, still got a lot of time, so it leaves you to speculate. I mean, we were talking about maybe a tag match to somehow get the titles over to the other guys. There is a lot they could do with this. They have a lot of first-time kind of matches. I mean, you obviously have the triple threat, but that leaves Seth Rollins. One thing I did take away from it was Cody's music never played.
It's true.
Which I thought was interesting, because it's kind of like this guy's still over, and what most people thought, like a Seth Rollins with his music making him over with the whoa, the music never played. He came out talking, and it took a little bit for them to get used to what was happening. But once the crowd understood what was happening, that Cody was coming out to confront, the crowd popped huge.
And I'll tell you what, before we get into the potential matchups here, because I do think they planted a lot of seeds, I kind of want to take credit and say I was right. The people that were freaking out weeks ago, that Cody, not weeks ago, it happened last Friday on SmackDown, where Cody said he wasn't going to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. You just got to let things play out sometimes. You know, I don't think this was a pivot by the WWE. I think this was definitely the move that they wanted to accomplish, and they accomplished it tremendously. Because it got people up in arms, it got people talking about it, and I guarantee you, after we see the report of how many people watched, that it paid off here at the press conference.
Yeah, it's hard to say on that. You can only speculate on stuff, something like that,
True.
or what the actual plans are. Because I mean, it all did come after CM Punk getting injured and having to pull out of the Seth Rollins match. So it's kind of hard to speculate on it. But I mean, they're playing it well. Whatever they did beforehand, they are playing it very well. I mean, I'm gonna shout out The Rock in what he did during this press conference, but he never really felt like a heel. He didn't do a lot of heelish things.
Oh, he did at the end when he slapped the shit out of Cody Rhodes.
But the thing is, when you really think about it, he had a reason to slap the shit out of him. He talked shit about his family. He talked shit about his grandfather. That felt real. And I mean, The Rock he's an actor, as we know. So it was just cinema.
Cinema indeed. A chef's kiss, if you will. The Rock, I thought he was leaning into the heel persona there towards the end. I do understand that if you talk shit about somebody's family, they're probably going to stand up for their family, and that's what he did. But Seth Rollins being there was interesting. I like at the end how it was unfiltered. Seth just going, this is bullshit. Just because you're part of the board doesn't mean you can do whatever you please. It was weird for a lot of that segment, though, at the end of the press conference, because Seth was kind of just there. You know, he was just standing in the background. But it makes you think of the possibilities that could happen down the road. Mm-hmm. We talked about it in the group chat. We saw those four men specifically on the stage. Is this potentially setting up a tag team match, and maybe they can do it at the Elimination Chamber like Ryan Matthews is saying?
I don't know. If I am booking this, you don't do anything until WrestleMania. You don't have any physical confrontation until WrestleMania. You need to milk it, in my full opinion, even if that means it's a triple threat or you have The Rock be a ref during this match. I don't know. Again, we still have answers. Those are the questions we still have to have answers to, which again, it's in a perfect spot. I do want to highlight really quick. I'm going to point this comment out. Okay. Vogus, The Rock showing the bloodline tree and saying deal with it isn't heelish. That's not heelish.
That's facts.
I mean, that's just facts. That's why the match was so big. He was pointing out, I mean, we were born into this feud basically. And The Rock and Roman was the heel during this, and he was talking shit about he is the head of the table when The Rock has been the head of the table for as long as he has been. So it's not heelish.
It's all perception at the end of the day. You could say it's heelish or if it's not, but at the end of the day, we do know one thing for sure. Cody Rhodes has challenged Roman Reigns for the title. Let's run to the chat, though, because I'm sure everybody has a lot to say. Kine basically summarizing everything that happened. He said Roman picks The Rock. Cody picks Roman. Roman talks about Cody's father. Cody talks about the grandfathers of Roman and Rock. Rock slaps Cody. Wow, I am seated. So good. Love it. And I said it earlier, I'm very curious to see the number that they did there for the press conference. I'm sure Triple H will share that. Ryan Matthews said that they censored The Rock's comment at the end. I'll slap the shit or teeth out of his fucking mouth is actually what he said. Yeah, there was just so many words being said there at the end that just got you really excited for WrestleMania. Because like we said, we know one thing's for certain. Cody versus Roman could be happening. But now it's where are we going to go till then? Because we have 58 days to feel, and I'm excited.
I mean, it could be another thing with The Rock kind of got thrown into this equation. Maybe Roman uses The Rock as kind of a pawn and throws him at him during Elimination Chamber. I mean, that's a headline match, and it's kind of like a stipulation. You have to go through him to get to me sort of situation. That way you get both a one-on-one. You get the feud of Cody versus Roman, which just started tonight. That ends at Elimination Chamber. Cody goes over, takes on Roman for the title. That might be my prediction.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely an option. press conference, my initial thoughts is we're not going to get double duty Roman Reigns. It's something I proposed. I don't think The Rock's going to face Roman just yet. Maybe they're just going to bleed this out a little bit, but I can't see The Rock actually facing Roman after what we saw tonight. But so much stuff that came out of it. Kind said it felt like The Rock came out and said, fuck you, this is a big match, this is a money match. And once again, he's not lying, Ian. The Rock versus Roman Reigns is a huge match.
Yeah, he's spelled it out. He brought out the as we said, the school project of the family tree, brought that out. He brought out the history of that title. He brought out the history of his own family, and it all makes sense. But it's just bad timing because Cody is white hot right now. So it makes sense for both sides, which that always makes the best feuds.
I tell you what, WrestleMania 40 is shaping up to be a special one. It wasn't just that final segment for the title. You had Becky Lynch interrupting Rhea Ripley, so it looks like that's definitely on the horizon as well. Becky even made a comment, she might as well be the bottom here, which was fantastic because, as we know, mommy is always on top. Bianca Belair's a star. Unfortunately, Bayley wasn't there and she won the Royal Rumble. I feel like Bayley probably should have been at that press conference, but with Bianca and Montez just having their show released on Hulu, I'm sure they want to get her out in front of as many people as possible, and she'll be in a predominant role at WrestleMania 40, but we still have a lot of questions to answer, and I'm very excited to see where direction they go in, because I think it's a win-win in any situation, because we know Cody versus Roman in some way is probably going to be happening, so yes, the fans are getting what they want.
What the perfect thing about this is the so-and-so Cody crybabies, they are shut up. They know what Cody's intentions still are. Yes, Table Greca. Oh boy, not great. They know his intentions. They know he's still tied in with Roman's title. But at the same time, The Rock is now against Cody. And people already hate The Rock, so they're turning Rock into a heel. This is perfect. This is a perfect situation. And I'm excited. I will be tuned in for SmackDown tomorrow. I will be tuned in to Raw and every single SmackDown and every single Raw until WrestleMania. So this is it's a great spot.
That's why they did this, people, to get you talking about it and getting you watching the product. And I guarantee you there's going to be more eyes on the WWE product going forward than we've seen probably since the Attitude Era. My biggest question, though, that comes out of it is what this means for Seth Rollins. I mean, like we said earlier, he was kind of just there. Is there any way we can get to a Fatal 4-Way, or is that even something you would like to see?
I mean, another puzzle piece you still have to worry about is where Drew McIntyre is and how he could get in on the mix. Maybe it's something to do with Raw, because, I mean, it is the backup title. Especially after tonight, that title really doesn't mean a whole lot for WrestleMania.
Look where the title was the entire segment, off to the side.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I thought Seth played a perfect role in it. He was that backup babyface who stepped up for Cody at the end. So I don't know. Maybe it is that tag team match that we were talking about. I don't want a unifying of the titles, though.
I think we both agree on that. We talked about that on the Main Event Mixer, so definitely go check that out. We talked about the potential matchups, and we still really don't know for sure what's going to be going down. But Bill Moss is stopping by. Bill is frequently attending NXT shows. He is a mark just like us. Bill, I appreciate you stopping by. He said Rollins is playing second fiddle, unfortunately, and it's kind of hard to disagree with him.
Well, I mean, when you're going against a feud with The Rock, Roman, today's Roman and Cody Rhodes, it's kind of hard to be first fiddle.
And I tell you what, it's very unfortunate what happened to CM Punk, because it was a ripple effect, like you said earlier. Otherwise, we definitely would have had Seth Rollins in a big spot at WrestleMania.
I will say the opening with, I mean, shout out to Big E. Big E was on screen, which is awesome to hear. And they actually asked how his health was, so that gave me a little hope. Little hope with Big E. I'm still not hanging my hat on it, but
right.
They asked CM Punk, Michael Cole asked CM Punk how he thought about the whole entire situation, and he straight out said, "This happened to you, CM Punk. How do you feel about this situation?"
And he was honest.
And he was completely honest, which I loved, because, I mean, we're all wrestling fans. We know what CM Punk's past was with The Rock, and I mean, it was a good touch on what the story was at, because it kind of gave you an idea that the WWE creative understands that they're putting The Rock in there is not going to happen. We don't need to put Rock and Roman together.
And you could make the argument, too, that they were testing the waters with this, doing what they did on SmackDown last Friday. That might be the case. But I'm telling you, I still think this was all a part of the plan, and everybody fell for it. Kind said, this sucked 99% of the people in. You ain't going to want to miss a single thing leading into Mania. There's intrigue building, there's animosity, and I love it. Yes, Kind, 100% agree with you there. And I know this is a big deal because I got people that aren't even wrestling fans asking me, hey, what do you think about The Rock inserting himself into WrestleMania storylines? And these are people that do not watch WWE ever, have made fun of WWE in the past, but it is now at the mainstream level. And I think you have to credit The Rock for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, it's inserting, it's mix of reality and pro wrestling into one. And that's where wrestling needs to be. It really does. If you want to gain more notoriety, you have to shut up the people that saying it's fake, because you have The Rock. He literally did join, what was it, TKO as a head of, I don't know what his job title is, but
something.
He actually joined that, and now he's in the main event. So I'm still, my brain is still going at 1,000,000 miles per hour.
I mean, we are literally doing this minutes after the press conference concluded. If you're listening to this on a replay, you're getting our instant reactions here. Nothing's planned, but the chat's kind of died down a little bit. Any final thoughts, though, from the WrestleMania press conference?
They did it perfectly. I was skeptical at first of this press conference, especially when I saw it was on a big stage and it was having everybody in there with the main event title. Especially, genuinely, they could have had Cody, Seth, Rock, and Roman up there for an hour straight, and I thought it was going to carry the entire press conference. I had a lot of fun with that.
It was one of the best things I've watched in recent history that didn't involve actual in-ring wrestling. If you would have offered that ticket for 1 hour for $50, I probably would have bought the ticket knowing the results that we got out of it. But it's still in a wait-and-see pattern for us fans. Will this pivot into a triple threat, fatal four-way? Will we get a tag match with The Rock and Roman Reigns teaming up? That's mega in itself, and if you have them face Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, hell, you can even do Cody versus The Rock in the future with Cody Rhodes as the champion. Main event of SummerSlam? I'm just saying.
Who says no?
I don't, because we're probably going to be there. That's a little selfish.
Yeah, fair.
I tell you what, man, very, very excited for that, but I think that's about all we have on the WrestleMania press conference. Let's get into this week of wrestling and go back to Sunday, because there actually was a very good PLE that went down for NXT Vengeance Day. Before we get to, the major topic, what happened in the main event, Ian, as a whole, how did you enjoy this PLE from NXT?
As a whole, even with not knowing the backstories, not knowing the characters, because I'm not a big NXT person. I mean, I should be. After watching this PLE, because I was locked in. The biggest takeaway I had from this was Trick Williams is that guy. That dude is a stud, and I'm excited to see where he grows into, because the entire time I was texting and I said, this is Booker T 2.0. This guy is very, very entertaining in ring and all. Braun Breaker and Corbin, that match, also incredible. Them two together is very entertaining. Love to see it on the main roster, as much as people don't want to see Baron Corbin on the main roster. They are fun, entertaining, and an actual tag team. What other matches happened? It was the females championship. I forgot who was in there.
Lyra Valkyria versus Roxanne. Lola Vice attempted to cash in. I kind of like Lola failing the cash in there. Yeah. I didn't think she was quite ready for a major title, but a lot of people seem to be pissed off about it.
I think it was kind of like she's more of the hot topic nowadays, and they wanted to see her win it, but she has a long ways to go. Very good in ring. Yeah. Very, very good in ring. Has the look of a champion.
There's a lot of realism with her as well.
Yeah, exactly. She was a
MMA fighter.
MMA fighter, correct. Okay. So, again, she has a long ways to go. I'm sure she's pretty decently young. I'm not worried about that at all. Plus, Lyra Valkyria just won the title in the grand scheme of things. So let her have a little bit of a run with it. Let that women's roster build up a little bit, because now you have two contenders still. I mean, Roxanne still is in that contention, in 100%. My opinion, especially after that match.
The Roxanne story of her trying to get back to the title was the fact that she never got pinned for it. and you still protect that story going forward into Stand and Deliver weekend. And that's why I like that idea of having Lola cash in mid-match. Now, the timing of the cash in didn't make a lot of sense because, Roxanne and Lyra still had a lot left in the tank, but at the end of the day, I think they accomplished what they needed to accomplish for sure. And Bill Moss, he goes on to say that Dragunov versus Trick was match of the year.
Oh.
I mean, as of right now, it's hard to argue that. I added it to my list.
We will be talking about another match of the year candidate as so far here in the episode. But yes, absolutely. I didn't know Ilya Dragunov was that guy. And same with Trick. Again, I think Trick really stepped up. He wrestled twice that night. He did, and he delivered both times. Obviously, with the finish, that probably had a lot to do with why we thought so highly of the match. But in all, it was probably about 30 minutes of pure one-on-one wrestling up until the end.
Yeah, and Dragunov and Dijak have to be one of the most consistent PLE performers that the WWE has. Every time they go out there, I mean, look at that match that Dijak had with Joe Gacy. Dijak gets the win. Joe Gacy still gets to develop that weird, creepy character because Joe Gacy was smiling after being defeated by Dijak. I mean, that's a perfect example of Bully Ray says. Somebody goes over, somebody gets over. I think they both got over in that match.
Yeah, I completely agree. I like what I've always been a fan of the Joe Gacy characters, kind of like the Bray Wyatt characters. Rest in peace. It's entertaining. It's very entertaining. I like that dark side of it. When he was, I think it was like the first pin or something. He was just smiling ear to ear when he was basically knocked out. It's a cool little feeling.
I think Mr. Cincinnati from the Wrestling Junkies podcast compared him to Mick Foley, and I totally get that comparison as well. I think that's a good one. Kind said it was my favorite show. NXT Vengeance Day was awesome. He gives it an A. All the matches were awesome. Braun is the next big thing. Tag match. Just a lot of awesome there from Kine, and it's hard to disagree. He also went on to say that Ilya vs. Trick was a banger. Trick can hang with the big dogs. Yes, he definitely can. Bill says that Lola has a long career ahead of her. One setback isn't going to hurt her long term. Makes her look young and foolish, but she has a lot of time to learn and grow. And I think that's perfectly said from Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of time for Lola to grow.
And I do understand why some people might have been mad because I think it was technically the first women's contract cash-in. And it's like you're starting off the cash-in concept with an L, but as we've seen the Money in the Bank be handled in past years, there's a lot of failures there as well. So it's just what happens.
The Money in the Bank, especially, that's a good point. The Money in the Bank, it should never be a 100% victory every single time. I mean, the fact that Lola Vice tried to cash in during the match and not after when everyone's down, it shows, I mean, in my opinion, it shows that she is a warrior. She is a fighter. So it gives a little credit to her character.
Yeah,
if she would have came in when everyone was knocked out, it doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah, and they really didn't expand much on why Lola decided to cash in on NXT this week, but they definitely developed the storyline between Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. So let's talk about that main event. We already talked about how awesome it was. It definitely was a match of the year candidate for me. I totally agree with your statements about Trick Williams, but this is a story that we have seen develop since October. We didn't know who really attacked Trick Williams backstage. Lexis King's name was thrown into the fold. Carmelo was trying to paint the picture that Ilya Dragunov was the one that attacked Trick. Come to find out, after Trick Williams was unable to defeat Ilya Dragunov, Carmelo Hayes turns on his best friend. R.I.P. Trick Melo gang. We got ourselves a hot new feud going in NXT. And Carmelo Hayes followed it up with a fantastic promo on Tuesday night. Talk to me a little bit about what you thought about the turn and how excited you are potentially going forward.
Very excited. I was unfamiliar with Melo as a heel. He might have been a heel when I first caught some glimpse of him. Yeah. But I really started catching attention when it was the Melo Don't Miss movement. I think that's kind of what it was phrased as. But
yeah.
With the PLE, it was exciting. I mean, we kind of saw the writing on the wall, especially when it came down to it. We had Melo come out ringside. It was just writing on the wall. But I really kind of want to highlight the NXT episode. It's really smart because you have Trick Williams, who really got popular. I mean, he's charismatic, absolutely, but mainly is because of the song. I don't know if that's very.
I would say that had a little bit to do with it, yes.
So, and it capitalizes too, because you just made the biggest heel out of Melo, and who's his number one enemy
Number
right
one
now?
baby face too
And that's
is the enemy.
now you just made Trick Williams into a star for as long as this feud goes on. He's not going to be a flash in the pan. Now you have the area to capitalize on Trick Williams as a superstar. So I'm excited to see where they go with it, and excited to see how long they take it.
Well, that last line that you said right there is interesting because I was going to say that I'm curious if this feud bleeds into the main roster because we saw Carmelo Hayes on SmackDown the past couple months. Trick Williams has even made an appearance on SmackDown before. You can have that match at Stand and Deliver, or if they want to do it earlier on NXT Roadblock, and you could keep that feud going into the main roster, and that could be another big feud going into the summer. The WWE is really setting up a lot of great potential feuds going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you have already off the top of my head, you have 4 guys in Melo, in Trick, in Braun, in Baron Corbin that could all make that jump up to the main roster. And like you said, I didn't even think about doing that. But that's kind of where it gets into iffy territory because you have to bank on the fact that casual fans on the main roster will understand where this feud is at.
It's fair.
So it's going to take a lot of explanation. But I like that idea. I wouldn't be, obviously, as a person that knows what is happening with this feud, I would be very excited for that because this is one of those feuds that could be on the main stage and a lot of people would be entertained by it.
Yeah, and like Mr. Cincinnati's saying, NXT hasn't really carried over feuds to the main roster, but this one definitely fits the bill. And maybe now that Triple H is in charge of things, that's when you'll see storylines bleed over into the main roster. I think that would be a great idea. But another note from that turn, it was a classic NXT swerve. We saw the graphic at the end of the PLE. Yeah, that's when everybody usually assumes that the PLE is going off air. No, Melo and Trick embracing a hug, and that's when Melo attacked the knee of Trick Williams. And a very vicious attack, might I add. Like, he didn't hold back at all with those chair shots.
No, there was one shot that he actually charged up for, and I'm pretty sure he actually smoked his knee with the chair. And as a knee pain survivor, oh gosh, I know Vogus was cringing very hard.
Yeah, if you don't know Ian, he gets hurt a lot and he has leg issues as well. So I'm sure you were feeling pain during that. Let's run to the chat. I got to give him credit because he did know it from day one that Melo was the guy. Melo didn't want to Trick to steal the light, and he waited for the right moment to strike, and it was perfect. And yeah, it's hard to disagree with you there, Kine. He also goes on to say that Melo's promo was unreal too. The fake Trick entrance, which was a nod to what Shawn Michaels did back in the day. And now they got to wait to decide to see what he wants. Trick got whooped by Melo. Melo versus Trick is going to be one for the NXT history books.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Ian, you might not have watched it when it was happening, but back in the day, this gives me Gargano versus Ciampa vibes.
I mean, I know what the story is, and I know it's 2 best friends, and one turned on the other. Because
Ciampa turned on Gargano at the end of a PLE.
Wasn't Ciampa? He got jealous of Gargano as well.
Yeah, I think that's correct. It was so long ago. I probably should know, but I can't say for sure.
Well, I'm happy to be living through this feud. I will say that.
I think we both are. Bill goes on to say, I don't know if anyone else agrees, but Dragunov is the best wrestler in the world currently. His selling, his emotion, his intensity, his toughness is what a lot of people like to see in pro wrestling. I don't think I can definitively say he's the best.
It's hard to say.
But he is definitely one of the best. Would you agree?
Yeah, that was gonna be my answer. It's hard to ever say when one wrestler is the best. You could put a top 5 out there. He could definitely be in that top 5. I don't think you'd ever definitively say this guy is the best wrestler in the world.
There's so much talent right now in professional wrestling, and it's not just the major companies. You got people in TNA, NWA, the indies that are fantastic, but I definitely would put him in my top 5, Bill. That's for damn sure. Mr. Cincinnati says that he should be top 10 in PWI next year. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with that, especially on the trajectory that he is on here for 2024. And fun fact, your dad, the podcast dad himself, blew out both of his knees as well.
Passes through the family. Passes through the family. Makes sense.
Kind agrees with Bill. He's up there in the conversation. Ilya has been awesome for ages. Everything about him is perfect. He puts on the show. He's entertaining and gives 110% every match. And that's the thing I noticed with Dragunov as well, is that guy goes balls to the wall. It doesn't matter what the match is. You get the same Dragunov that you saw there at Vengeance Day on NXT every Tuesday. And that's a champion I can get behind, Ian.
Yeah, it's a reliable champion. It's a guy that is like legitimately fighting for the company. He understands the spot that he's in and brings that intensity all the time. I didn't see him when he didn't have the title, but I'm sure that having that title around his shoulder boosts what he's doing in the ring.
Yeah, for sure. So overall, what letter grade would you give NXT Vengeance Day?
A-. I think that's a safe score. Wasn't perfect. There was a lot of in-ring mishaps throughout. Like, not every match was perfectly
That mixed tag match was ass.
Yeah.
Come on. Like, OTM ain't doing it for me. I know they're relatively new.
I genuinely forgot that was a match, so I'll stick with an A-, but now that I remember that match. Yeah.
Bill says B. I would have to go B+, because I think the main event and what happened after the main event really carried for the show as a whole. But I agree with Bill as well. He said they got to get rid of that ugly rainbow belt. I hate that NXT title.
Honestly,
You like it?
I don't hate it. That's the thing. I don't hate it.
This is my NXT title.
I agree.
This is the real gold.
I agree with that, but I don't hate the rainbow belt. It might help that I have LEDs everywhere. I kind of like that.
I was going to say, look at your background. What do you got on the TV? It's hard for me to see.
Oh, it's just a Hulu TV. Just the home screen. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Hulu, did you watch Montez and Bianca's new show at all?
No. Don't plan on it.
Oh, okay. Then don't. Fuck you too, I guess. Bill's in. Bill says bring back Goldie. Yes, that's what the belt's called, because Ciampa called him Goldie. That makes a lot of sense. Kind said, you see Ilya take on Melo in a main event and gives you his all. You see Ilya on a normal match versus Brodus Clay, and he gives it 110%. 100%. Tino said, what's up, guys? Tino, thanks for stopping by, man. I'd love to hear what you had to say about the WrestleMania press conference. I know he was live, so make sure you check out Tino's content as well. Good friend of OTM. But before we finish off the show talking about what's happening in AEW, don't forget we have some fantastic merch available right now at the OnTheMarkWrestlingPodcast.com. And I think one that's very fitting, I don't know if you heard it during the press conference, were the What Chants.
Oh my God.
Get yourself a Stop the What Chants t-shirt, people, at the OnTheMarkWrestlingPodcast.com, because you're interrupting the biggest press conference in wrestling history with that bullshit. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, not good. Not good.
Kind said, I think Ilya is a perfect guy to introduce a new belt because the rainbow one sucks. And yeah, it doesn't feel prestigious and it doesn't fit Ilya Dragunov.
Yeah, honestly, that's a good call.
What, you know what, Bill? I'm gonna boot you from this stream if you keep that shit. Just kidding. I like Bill. He's a good guy. I interact with him daily on X, I guess I should call it. Mason, thanks for stopping by. He said Cody and Jay versus Roman and The Rock at the Chamber. Cody and Jay, I didn't think about that when we were talking about Seth and Cody potentially teaming up. I guess that would make more sense because Seth is still hurt. I think we kind of forgot about that earlier.
That is true.
Bloodline versus...
I don't know if I like that. It needs to take some convincing for me to put Jay in there.
It fits. It makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does on paper.
He's part of the family, and then you're gonna have Jimmy and Solo interrupt and screw them over because that's how every fucking match ends. Solo Sikoa in a hood, like we don't know who he is. Solo, we know it's you. If there's a hood ringside, it's Solo Sikoa. But also,
I was gonna say, now that we're getting back to the press conference, I do want to point out we did get the introduction of WWE. What's it called? Speed.
WWE Speed, yeah.
On Twitter, so that's gonna be interesting. It might be good for the daily wrestling injection right into my arm. I need 5 minutes of wrestling. Okay, I'll go watch that. So I like that. That's interesting.
I think it definitely is an interesting concept. I mean, they tried 205 Live with their cruiserweight division. That was pretty good. I didn't hate it, didn't love it, but I think in today's day and age, you know what's popular? YouTube Shorts, TikToks, short clips that you can just breeze right through. You're selling this as an X exclusive. People are already on X while they're watching wrestling. You just pull up your phone, watch a 5-minute match. You could see Axiom take on Pete Dunne. I'm sure there's a lot of great people that could fit the bill for a 5-minute match because that's what they're marketing it as. You can even have Akira Tozawa show up there.
I just thought about this with that speed programming. The worst people in the world wrestling-wise is on X. So better not botch during those matches, boys.
I think it's probably going to be pre-taped. I think they're doing
that's true.
because there was a leak of WWE Speed. I think they were taping those things about a month or two ago, so they all might be pre-recorded, and for good reasons. If you're going to be putting it on X, Bill said 205 Live was such an underrated show. Yeah, not a lot of
Brian
people.
Kendrick.
Yeah, he was the man with the plan at one time. And Bill also asked, could we see the first Hell in a Cell WrestleMania main event? Maybe. It's an interesting option. I don't know if they need it, but I wouldn't hate it. But then at the end of the day, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like Cody just has to beat Roman clean.
It's got to be a normal match.
A normal match.
Yep.
You agree?
Yep.
Yeah, Bill's right. You've watched any random episode of 205 Live in 2018, Buddy Murphy was stellar. Cedric Alexander. There were a lot. Rich Swann, Enzo Amore. I mean, there was some good stuff. Neville, now known as Pac. There was a lot of good names in there. And Mr. Cincinnati said the wrestling junkies could always use another fix.
I get it.
Yeah. Talking about WWE Speed. Kind said 5-minute speed matches are going to be good. I feel like a quick match to watch when making breakfast or coffee. Yeah, that's
exactly.
a great thing. Just when you're sitting there at the table, you want to put on a match. Why not? I think it's a good idea. All right, Ian, you ready to talk about AEW?
Yes, very much so.
Let's talk about Dynamite specifically here. And let's get into the opening match between Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland. Now, this match was number one contendership for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, and we did not get a definitive finish. It ends in a time limit draw. They give it a half hour of time, and man, what an enjoyable opener that was for AEW Dynamite.
That is how you open up a show. I wish that show, it made me want it to go on for 3 hours just so that show or that match could go on for another hour. That feud is incredible. At first, I was skeptical about Hangman and Swerve, but they've really built it up into something special. The in-ring talent, the in-ring chemistry these two have is something that cannot go unnoticed.
For sure.
At the beginning of the match, you saw Hangman listen to the crowd and say, okay, I'm really going to dive deep into the heel persona very early on to this match. When I mentioned earlier during this pod that we're going to talk about another match of the year candidate. This is the one, and we didn't even have a winner.
Yeah.
So it makes sense too, because Swerve is 2-0 against Hangman. Yeah. Technically, there was no winner, so it didn't make sense for. I mean, I guess it would push a little bit if Swerve got the 3-0 in the series.
That probably ruins Hangman.
Exactly. So it's a win-win for both. Hangman has this new persona now. I mean, with that big old mustache of his, which looks fantastic.
It's kind of like yours.
Yeah, honestly, I might shave everything just for the mustache.
Give him a close-up. Give him a taste of the mustache. I must ask you a question, audience. What do you think of Ian's mustache?
I just got to shave it. I got to trim it a little bit. But where was I? Yeah, but the match, incredible. Incredible stuff from top to bottom. The only issue was that table spot, but I thought they recovered really well from it. I thought Swerve going out and to grab another table really built into Swerve being the driving force of that match because the crowd was hot. It reminded me, like when I said last week in our last episode that the Collision episode, the crowd was hot. It felt like that Collision crowd moved over to Dynamite, which is new to Dynamite. Dynamite crowds have been kind of lackluster as of late, which you could maybe blame that on the location, but it really has to do with what this feud has become.
And I think this feud has become one of the best feuds in AEW history. And that's not a crazy thing for me to say, I don't think, just because they haven't been around that long. And maybe it's just because it's fresh in our minds, but this match itself is proof, that this has been an incredible feud between these two men. I know a lot of people get mad about, draws or DQs or not a clear-cut finish, but when it makes sense storyline-wise, do it. And that's what they did here. I ridicule AEW a lot about their booking, about who's the babyface and who's the heel. It didn't matter in this situation because I think we got the perfect result. Hangman, Swerve, Samoa Joe for the AEW World Title at AEW Revolution. That's going to be a big money matchup right there.
And another thing too is we were very confused. I think it might have been the year opener for Dynamite. We were very confused with that segment it was Hangman, Swerve, Hook, Samoa Joe all going for that title. But now it's all making sense. Hook was thrown out there. I mean, I will say Hook was thrown out there as a, hey, fuck you to WWE fans shitting on Hook because who is Hook?
To be fair, I think AEW marketed the Hook's title match before Jinder got one. Oh? I believe so, yeah. So
I don't know. I don't remember.
I think, yeah. But there was a lot of, drama between Hook AEW fans, WWE fans defending Jinder, vice versa. But regardless, I think it's safe to say that this match is going to make our match of the year candidates.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, at least for now. I was
going to say, we're into the second month of the year, and I'm pretty sure there's about 4 matches on our match of the year candidates list.
That's a good sign for 2024. It's all right, Ryan. He said his mom loves The Rock. My mom loves The Rock as well, so he had to step out of the live so he could show the presser. Kind's a big fan of the mustache, by the way.
Thank you. I'm going to start curling it, actually.
Good. There you go. Kind of like the Butcher, right? Isn't that what he does?
Yes.
Good luck with that. Kind also said that triple threat is going to be a banger. I'm excited for it. Definitely going to have to tune in to see what happens. I'm hoping Swerve gets the win. I am as well, and Kind actually enjoyed AEW Dynamite as the AEW realist, as he likes to call himself. I'm putting air quotes over that for people listening at a later date, but credit where credit is due. He enjoyed it, so shout out to you, Kind. Tino asked, do you guys think Trick Melo could end in a loser leaves NXT? Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. I actually like that.
What does that do to the momentum of the guy that ends up leaving NXT to the main roster?
It's a good question.
That would be my only gripe.
So if Melo went over on Trick goes to the main roster after that, are people still going to be into Trick?
Well, okay, I wouldn't see it as Trick losing. I genuinely, we've been talking about Melo moving on to the main roster for a long time. Yeah, when is he going to be called up? I think Melo would lose that. It's a win for NXT crowd because you have Trick Williams. I mean, if you get the title on Melo at some point and Trick wins that title, becomes a face on NXT, Melo moves on. I don't know what they do with Melo, though. That's my only issue.
I tell you what, I'm connecting some dots now. We saw Melo take out Dragunov at the end of NXT. Do Melo and Dragunov at NXT Roadblock. It's a normal Tuesday special show. Put the title on Carmelo Hayes. Trick Williams returns after Carmelo Hayes wins the NXT title on Roadblock. Beats the crap out of Carmelo Hayes. There's your match for WrestleMania weekend.
Yep.
Book it. There you go. That's free, WWE. Ooh. I'm feeding you guys ideas. Kind said, whose mom doesn't love The Rock? It's a good point. I'm sure most moms love The Rock. But other than Hangman versus Swerve, Bill goes on to say the show went downhill after that. I don't know if it went downhill big time, but definitely that was the most memorable thing. Other than the big announcement from Tony Khan. Ladies and gentlemen, we got big business coming to AEW March 13th in Boston. And I don't know if you saw the graphic, Ian, but Boston was spelled out Boston. Mm-hmm. I think there's somebody that was a legit boss at one time that might be a free agent.
You forgot to mention that the S's had the slashes right through the middle for the $sign. And one of the lady we're about to talk about, her tweets got brought back up, and it literally just said Boss Town with $signs for the S's. Mercedes Moné.
There's money going to be printing in AEW. We do have a couple more comments about NXT. Kind said, I'm not happy that Melo versus Ilya could happen. We need Dijak versus Ilya, man, which we did get on Tuesday. It just wasn't for the title. One last time, all out, both men trying to murder each other. I do think Dijak getting in the NXT title scene would be beneficial going forward as well. Bill loved the idea. He said, perfect for Roadblock. Tino's got more questions. You know, that's what you get here at OTM. We're going to dive deep into this shit because at the end of the day, Ian, what are we?
We're marks.
And I didn't even plan that, and you nailed it. Good job. You're starting to learn. He also asked, could we now get a tag match with Cody and The Rock? Yeah, we talked about that earlier, Tino. We definitely think it's a possibility. Bill goes on to say that the announcement was a letdown. As much as I love Sasha, Khan telling me to wait 5 weeks for her debut is kind of lame. So let's dissect this, because that is a criticism of Tony Khan's announcements and kind of his booking. We saw it with Roderick Strong challenging for the international title 6 weeks out. Now this is 5 weeks out. I do understand it from a business standpoint. Now you're going to have people buying a bunch of tickets for that Dynamite.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because those people that are criticizing them announcing it, they will be tuning in to see what she has to say. I mean, again, it's not even official. I mean, it's about 99% official that it's going to be Mercedes Moné showing up. But how is she going to show up? What is she going to say? What is her mission statement? That's the hook. You don't need a surprise, because those surprises nowadays, those end up showing up on Twitter, and those aren't views for the business. That's just as simple as it is. That's how the business has changed.
So let me ask you this. Does Mercedes Moné move the needle for AEW?
It depends on what they do with the women's roster. And we keep saying that because they get one match an episode, maybe a backstage segment on top of it with Toni Storm. And they've gotten a little bit better, but that's still it. They need to give more time for the women to develop in ring. And I still love the idea of giving Rampage to the women's roster. Let them cook there. Let's see them develop something there. And then that could bleed over to the Collision or Dynamite, especially if you're only going to show them once in the ring. And then when it's basically a squash match and you know who's going to win during those Dynamite matches, it does nothing for them. And especially when you're bringing in, because I mean, another issue with Mercedes Moné coming in, you just had Deonna Purrazzo come in, and now she's already a number one contender. You're going to bring Mercedes Moné in. She's going to be a number one contender. That's just how it's going to work, because she is just that high of stardom. That's another issue I have. There's not a lot of building up into that title picture, such as like what Copeland has done. That's my biggest gripe.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there for sure. And I understand where people are coming from when they say that the excitement level for Mercedes and AEW isn't where it once was. I would agree with you, but I do think this is, pun intended, a money move for AEW.
Yes, absolutely.
You look at some of the past big signings they've had in the women's division. Let's go back to all the way to, I believe it was 2001, Ruby Soho. That was big at the time. I'm not comparing her to Mercedes Moné by any means, but Ruby was a big get for them. Ruby was showcased for a while, and then we really haven't seen much of Ruby since. Look at Saraya. Saraya comes over, one of the faces of the women's revolution in the WWE. She had a title match. We don't see much of her anymore. I don't think that's how they are going to handle Mercedes. You just can't. Mercedes needs to be there week in and week out. I don't want part-time stuff. I think she needs to be there full-time, help build up the rest of the division, because you still got Mariah May waiting in the wings. They have Taya Valkyrie there. They have pieces. There's names there. Anna Jay's starting to get some shine. Red Velvet's on TV. Sky Blue. They have names. Do you agree that Mercedes needs to be a full-time competitor?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like you said, they have all the chess pieces. They don't have the board to play it on. They have a one little tile of this wrestler is going to face this wrestler at the end. And there's no build to anything. They don't let any of the women's talent do anything with their stories.
They're starting to get there, though.
And I wouldn't even say that, because Toni Storm is just that entertaining. She has made her title into something.
Oh, she's on a pedestal above the rest.
Yeah, and she's been doing it through backstage promos. That's just showing how good she is. They haven't changed anything with her besides giving her more backstage promos. She really hasn't been in the ring besides going through commentary.
Well, speaking of backstage promos, did you see the most recent one after Dynamite where she named her submission move?
No, I did not.
She's calling it break a leg.
It Go makes a break a leg.
And she's like, I sniffed you, Deonna Purrazzo, and you smelled like filth. I mean, timeless Toni Storm. Just imagine her having a feud with Mercedes. I think the big money play with Mercedes and AEW is Jamie Hayter at Wembley. Just because you're going to have the home ground behind Jamie. That's another name. And of course, how can you forget I think she's the face of the AEW Women's Division, and that being Britt Baker. I think that is your first feud.
Yeah, I'm hoping Britt Baker, the stuff she has said on Twitter isn't actually a shoot, brother.
What's she saying?
Well, what she did say, it's been actually a few months now, where she didn't really, she was not in the ring on television throughout the whole entire year of 2023. I hope that's not a shoot, brother. I hope that's a work. I don't know.
I guess time will tell with that, but yeah, big business in AEW for sure. March 13th. We'll be watching. Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, whatever you want to call her. There's no denying she's one of the best female talents in the history of professional wrestling. I think I can confidently say that.
Yes.
She main evented a WrestleMania, for God's sake. So that definitely says something. Let's run over to the chat here before we wrap up. Kind said, I think this could be the women's division needle mover in AEW if booked correctly all around for women and not just individually for Moné. Yeah, so basically he's agreeing what we were saying about Sasha, Mercedes. Bill goes on to say, Sasha is great in-ring wrestler, up to standard with the men. I don't think most women in AEW wrestle that good. That's part of the reason AEW women's division is weak, in my opinion. And I think that's a fair take from Bill, no?
I wouldn't say they're not that good. I think there hasn't been a lot of development, and that's why WWE thrives. They have NXT. They have their dark matches. AEW really doesn't have as much with that. So I agree, yes, but at the same time, it's in AEW's fault that the women are not as good as Moné.
And this is a lot coming from me because I've been bashing the AEW women's division over the years. I think they're getting there. I think that Mercedes is definitely going to put them over the edge. I don't think it's going to be a rating pop. Maybe the first show in Boston on March 13th, you'll get a ratings jump, but I don't think this is going to change the landscape of professional wrestling by any means. But if maybe they potentially swerve us in a way where it's not just Mercedes, you also get Okada in Boston, then I think you're starting to cook. That could be something waiting for us.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I do want to point out at the end of Dynamite, I thought the main event was a talking point to talk about. We have new tag team champions of Sting and Darby Allin, which I thought was a long time coming. They've been undefeated as a tag team for, ever since Sting has been in the company and had a lot of backing up from the crowd. This is his retirement tour, and most likely going into Revolution, they will have the titles over their shoulders. And it was a great match between them and Big Bill and Ricky Starks. I wanted to know how you felt about that match.
I mean, the match itself was what it was. It's your typical Darby and Sting kind of tag match, and that's not a bad thing. All credit to Sting. Doing what he's doing at this age, absolutely incredible. My biggest takeaway, once again, though, is what happens after the match. You have the EVPs, Nicholas, and why am I blanking on the other one's name? Matthew. Nicholas and Matthew Jackson. And once again, I am a known Young Bucks hater. I don't like the Young Bucks, but I hate how I like this gimmick. It makes so much sense.
They finally leaned into why people hate them, and they could pull strings at any point if they want to. I love the look of them. They came out in all white suits, blood at the end of Darby Allin's blood coming out of his head. That was a cool visual. I hope I just hope they don't go too corny with their heel turn and kind of lean into the face side and being entertaining and funny.
Yeah.
Like the backstage segments of him walking down, or both of them walking down the hallway like a piece of shit boss and just bossing everybody around, saying, why were you late when they're an hour late? It's hilarious. I think that is funny to me, but at the same time, everybody could relate to that. So it's a good heel move.
And the image of blood on the white suits was awesome.
Oh, that's so cool.
Now it makes a lot of sense that Sting's last match is against the Bucks.
I hate having to point out Twitter trolls, whatever you want to call them. People hating on the Young Bucks versus Sting and Darby for the titles at Revolution. Why? Please clarify to me why the Young Bucks not deserve, but won't put on a great showing in his retirement match. I don't know. I'm still pissed about all of it.
Don't let the Twitter trolls get in your head. I've learned to just ignore them, just like the entire, we want Cody. I want Cody too, motherfucker, but I know.
But I don't mind
sometimes it takes time to develop stories. Look, I'm wearing Cody versus Roman here. I was at WrestleMania 39. I was wearing Cody Rhodes merch. I am a mark for Cody Rhodes, but I also acknowledge the Tribal Chief, and I know that The Rock is big business. Not pun intended, because we're talking about AEW, but yeah, I think that's about all I got to say. I mean, that Twitter just can really get you going. Bill says sounds like real life to me, but anything else you want to touch on, whether it's from the WWE or AEW?
Even though Tuck's not here, I will say it. Great time to be a wrestling fan, as we all are here talking about wrestling, and I feel alive after this. I will probably be up for another 4 hours thinking about wrestling tonight, but we do have an MVM to announce, Gags.
We do have an MVM to announce. If you are watching this for the very first time, because we did have a lot of new people checking us out, greatly appreciate it. If you don't know what the MVM is, it stands for Most Valuable Mark. You got to be commenting, you got to be interacting, but giving us quality comments. It's not always about volume. I want quality out of my MVM. But we had a heated rivalry going on. I won't call it a rivalry, but we had a back and forth going on in the chat amongst a lot of people today. And since you were off for last week, I will let you for the very first time announce our MVM.
Oh boy, that's a lot of pressure. You know what? And new!
No, not new.
Oh, we changed it. And still MVM of the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast, Kine. You're welcome, Kine. I gave you a little, did not mean to, but we're friends now, apparently. Here we go.
See, this is what happens when I give up the hosting reins. They botch it.
You can't do that.
Pay attention to the private chat, brother. That's all I got to say. Kine, congrats. Like he tweeted at us 4 weeks running now as the MVM. If you want to dethrone Kine, show up next week. Let's talk wrestling, because
title on the line every single week.
Wrestling is great. And you can even get, if you feel like an MVM yourself, go to the onthemarkwrestlingpodcast.com. Get yourself an MVM t-shirt. It'll complement very well with the award that you just won there, Kine. So shout out to you once again. Bill, appreciate you stopping by as well. Your hand is up. Yeah, yes, go for it.
One last thing. Shout out to my dad, Chris, over on the Wrestling Junkies. You could catch him through the Main Event Wrestling Network, which we are still looking for more content creators. If you enjoy wrestling, want to talk about it, want to make some illustrations about it, do anything. Make some graphics for us. Who cares?
TikToks.
T-shirt. TikToks. We'd love
We lost our TikTok guy, by the way. All right, Robbie.
Yeah, so we are looking for more content creation, so reach out to us at @main_event_ over on Twitter. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. But shout out to my dad, podcast dad.
Yeah, and shout out to the bloggers going at it this week.
Yes.
You can follow us on all the socials, like Ian was saying. A lot of good stuff. Bill, in the comments, you're welcome, sir. Hopefully we'll see you next week. I'd love to see you contend for that MVM. But as you said earlier, and as Tuck always says, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast.